Alright, we're up to video 3 of the week of Holiness. And this is from the Opter Rebbe. He says like that. Our sages teach us that God wears tefillin and that they contain the verse Mi el kamocha Israel, who is like your people Israel. Mi kamcha Israel, a nation one on earth. We certainly cannot take this literally, since God is devoid of all form and image. Why? So when we say that He wears tefillin, we are allegorically speaking of the close attachment that exists between God and Israel in His thought and will, to the extent that we can express this. God constantly wants to do good for His people and to grant them all sorts of abundance. This concept is referred to as His wearing tefillin. The main intent that we have when we put on tefillin is that we should unify the desires and thoughts of our hearts to serve God. We subjugate our minds, hearts, and all our powers so that they should be used for nothing but doing God's will. Tefillin are therefore called articles of holiness. Holiness hints or alludes to attachment to God. The same is true to the extent that we can express it when God puts on tefillin. He unifies His thoughts and will to fulfill our desires. So it's being a holy person is a person that wears tefillin. A person that wears tefillin is someone who integrates the concept that all his desires, all his thoughts are constantly attached to God and are attached to doing His will. Every second is about doing His will. Everything I'm doing is part of doing His will. So it's a very high level, a very high madriga, and one should at least be able to identify, right now I'm doing His will, right now I'm not doing His will. So let's say even if I'm watching a movie or whatever, say, oh, His will is probably that I watch a 10 minutes thing or a half hour or whatever, one movie to relax. His will is not to me to watch like for 3-4 hours in a row the show. So being able to do that also keep us attached to God, obviously by doing completely His will, but it's step by step. So it's not all or nothing. So that's an important thing. Realizing that, checking our thoughts and emotions and our things and see they're aligned with God. If God was next to me, what would He say about what I'm doing? Okay, that's one thing. Another thing, so we have articles of holiness. It helps us grow, remind us. Technically, if we want to be holy all day, we should have tefillin all day. Meaning, I should have my thoughts and desires a whole day directed towards one thing, which is to close to Hashem, love Hashem. Another thing on holiness, by the Magid Devarav Yaakov. I'm not sure which Rebbe this is, but it's a Hasidic Rebbe. He says the Jerusalem. Actually, it's the Mezritch Magid. The Magid of Mezrich. The Talmud Yerushalmi teaches us that the Sukkot celebration in Yerushalayim were called the joyous celebrations of drawing, because through them people drew in divine inspiration. This celebration involved rejoicing in God's commandments and attachment to God. As a result, people became worthy of divine inspiration. We must seek an explanation for this. It is further written, and it was when the musician began to play that the hand of God came upon the prophet. We can explain this in the following manner. Joy comes to a person when he experiences some great pleasure, or when he hears news or sees something that gives him pleasure. Joy is then derived from that thing. We therefore see that joy itself comes from the universe of pleasure, which is in itself undetectable. How come I experience that? So I cannot know where it comes from. It just happens by itself. This is very high on a level that is called holy. It then descends step by step until it comes to man in the spirit of the holy, meaning Ruach HaKodesh, which is divine inspiration. So he's saying that really someone who has Ruach HaKodesh is someone who is truly happy, someone who is holy. If someone is sad, you know he is not holy. Someone who is holy, it's someone who is in a constant state of understanding the pleasures of life. And just as I have just now, the pleasure of breathing, the pleasure of eating something, whatever pleasure I'm getting every second, because technically every second I'm getting pleasure, or more, at least 1%, or you can even have the pleasure to suffer for God, meaning it's something you're doing an effort, you're suffering, but you understand it's from Hashem, so you get pleasure from serving God, Lishma. So even on that level, then, and you understand that all that pleasure comes from God, so you stay attached to God. You reconnect everything to God. We know that every bracha, it was made by the rabbis in order for us to be able to recognize the pleasure and connect to God through that pleasure, and to stay spiritual through that moment. So that's another side of being holy. Let's do one last piece. Uh, 916. Okay, this is a bit deep. Let's see. It is written, keep the Shabbat to make it holy. So we want to be holy, we have to connect to what Shabbat is. This can be understood in the following manner. God created the universe with two concepts, direct light and reflected light. This is also from the Kedushat Levi, Magid of Mezrich. No, the Kedushat Levi is Rabbi Levi Yitzchak or Braditchev, if I remember correctly. Okay, Kedushat Levi. Sorry about that. So God created the universe with two concepts, direct light and reflected light. The concept of direct light is that which is distributed to the universes, each one according to its particular aspect. The universe of angels does not perceive any more than is appropriate to that world. And the physical universe also only perceives what is appropriate. The light which can be perceived by the universes is called direct light. The concept of reflected light is that which remains later. You know, like when you see a light and then I close my eyes and I see the light even when my eyes close. It does not enter the world since they cannot accept its brilliance. This light therefore returns to the infinite essence and constricts itself. The concept of the constriction, Tzimtzum, involves this reflected light. It cannot be grasped by anything that was brought into existence or created, for even the highest angel cannot perceive this light. So a reflected light is almost a deeper, it's a more hidden type of light. Israel, the holy nation, however, is higher than all the universes, higher even than the highest angels. They can therefore attach themselves to concepts that are not otherwise accessible and perceive them. So we go it's like a tzaddik is able to go even on a physical level and see the good, see the spirituality, see, even though it's on a low level. That it requires a very high level that angels cannot do. Angels cannot be involved with the physical. They can therefore attach themselves to concepts that are not otherwise accessible and perceive them. It is written that God grants forgiveness to the remainder of his heritage. Our sages comments that this refers to those who make themselves like a remainder. Okay, the godly Rabbi Dov Ber, the Mesoitre Maggid, said that this refers to those who sanctify themselves greatly with the holiness of God. The root of this concept of holiness also alludes to the above mentioned place of constriction, which is the place that cannot be perceived. Israel, however, sanctified themselves with respect even to permissible things. They separate themselves from the physical and from frivolous delights, which are the concepts that exist in this world and are visible in it. They attach themselves only to things which are above the physical world, and which therefore cannot be perceived. This only relates to the infinite essence. So because someone who is holy is attaching himself to things that he cannot see, therefore Israel is able to perceive things that others cannot see. And we're able to achieve levels, find the spirituality even in physical things. That's someone who is holy. He lives a level where even though I don't see God, I live with God. Even though I don't, I don't see the sparks of holiness, I understand that it's holiness that I eat. So that's holiness. I'm connecting to what's hidden, to the soul, to the essence. That's what someone who is holy. Understand that everything that is around me has a spiritual thing, and according to that hidden spiritual thing, we know that everything that is holy is hidden. There's more holiness in something that is hidden than not. So it connects to that reflected light that it's speaking about. So they therefore bind themselves to the remainder of the light that is distributed to the universes, which the worlds cannot tolerate. This is the light that returns to the infinite essence. The concept of the remainder is that of the reflected light discussed above. The nations of the world only receive concepts that exist within the worlds. This is alluded to by the 6 days of creation in which the worlds were completed, and is therefore the concept of distribution. They do not have any conception beyond that which exists within the universes. Therefore, they chose Sunday, the first day of the week, as the day of rest. This alludes to the highest concept within universes, since they cannot perceive anything beyond this. Israel, on the other hand, can perceive concepts that are even higher than the universes. They therefore keep the Sabbath, Shabbat, which alludes to the constriction. This is also the concept of holiness, which refers to separation from this physical world. So, right. So they see only what's there at the beginning. So the Sunday, first day of rest. So they use that day as their day of holiness, so to speak, saying that, we see from the beginning, the beginning of the light, we see what's direct. But the Jews, they see in Malchus, they see on Shabbat, they're able to see that everything leads to something holy, even what's not obvious. At the end of the week, we wait till the end. We know there's something at the end that it has a higher purpose. The concept of waiting, and understanding that we wait because there's a holiness, and we try to adapt to the holiness. Like making a bracha before you eat is waiting before you actually tap into the food, tap into the holiness. So you understand that there's a process to reach that holiness. Israel, on the other hand, can perceive concepts that are even higher than universes. They therefore keep the Shabbos, which alludes to the constriction. This also alludes to the concept of holiness, which refers to separation from the physical world. Why? Because Shabbat is it's a day where the physical becomes complete. It is the key to the spiritual. So at the end of Shabbat, we have to try to find the spiritual within Shabbat. That's what we do on Shabbat. We pray and we learn and all that, but we eat also. We do some physical stuff So Shabbat is a day of holiness. When my whole day is focused on God, I'm holy by using my entire day dating God. And eventually we have to use the whole week to date God. That everything that I do is just to be attached to God. And Shabbat is the example of how to be holy, how to eat, how to speak to each other, how to focus my day on what should be my mind, what should be my heart, what should be doing with my life, and use all that to connect to God. Also, even during the week, during the physical. This is an attachment to that which is higher than this world and which cannot be perceived. This is the meaning of the verse, keep Shabbat and make it holy. So that's the concept that is talking about holiness. So B'ezrat Hashem, we should all be able to achieve holiness and transform our entire week. And that's why we spoke about Shabbat and the tefillin. Tefillin, you're holy. On Shabbat, you don't need a tefillin because you're holy. Everything is about reminding you about how to think, how to feel, right? And yes, so B'ezrat Hashem, may we all be holy.